So it gives me the most immense pleasure ever to be sitting in the company of greatness. My man crush, am I allowed to say that? No, I can't say that. It was only because of the title. I have Mr. Chris Fung. Hello.
Hello, Mark, thank you for having me. Very kind.
So, Chris, if you don't know him, but you should, because you're everywhere. Lots of people know you. Chris is the ex-CEO of Crussh, with 2 S's. And also a non-exec and board advisor. That right? Or there's more more stuff.
Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff.
Angel investing.
Yes, angel investing.
International Man of Mystery.
Something like that.
Cool. So hopefully, if you're listening, you've checked out Crussh. I've been very lucky that we always had one near to our office, and just saw it grow and grow and grow and grow. And I remember, I guess we've known each other. God, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years more than that.
Yeah.
And I remember you gave me a call and you were like, do you want to go and check out our new branding sort of thing? So I think this was like early stage before
This was it's probably
the next stage.
Yeah, it's probably 2012, something like that. Probably around then, I think it was.
So I remember hopping around and seeing a couple. I think you'd only done 2 in this new style, but you could see that it was just, the target was just being hit. Before that it was sort of wavering a bit. It was like not right. It just went, and you thought, this has clicked into place. This is looking really sharp. And then I think over the last few years, and I kept using you guys as an example to clients as well, and saying, look, the brightness of the store, the brightness of the fridges, the colour, the vibrancy, it was just really exciting. And I think also the staff were so good, like they recognised you, and they always helped you out. So I was trying to do myself some good, at least, before the beers in the evening or whatever, to get some health in. So tell us about you. I mean, obviously there's Crussh is the midway bit, and then there's all new stuff and, all exciting stuff as well. But it'd be quite good to kind of start at the start and talk about how you got into this in the first place.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, I'm Australian, so I grew up in Australia and Hong Kong before that, and so part of that was the journey coming out to the UK. And when I ended up in UK, I was working for a consulting firm back then, and it's like with quite a lot of us in the industry of our generation, if you like. We've come out of having worked really hard in consulting lawyers, bankers, whatever, having pretty bad food basically and wanting to do better and being passionate about food. So coming out of that it became something that you wanted to do and get into the food business. And from a food perspective, I guess I always wanted to do sort of healthy food to an extent, or drinks, juices, smoothies, and so on. I mean, I call myself a bad Buddhist. But I'm a bad Buddhist because I like my steak, I like my burgers and so on. But running and setting up a business, I wanted to do something good for people. So originally, I was actually going back towards Hong Kong and Shanghai to set up a chain of juice bars and so on. But while I was out here, while I was still in London, I was meeting different people. So there was John Wright, who was one of the founders of Innocent. Is ex-Bain. And then one of our original shareholders, Tim Levine, was a shareholder of Crussh, sold was a Canary Wharf store to James, who set up Crussh. So through that I met different both sides, but I definitely wanted to do the retail side more so than the manufacturing sort of FMCG side of the product. And sort of met James. A funny story, literally 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave the country for good. And
this is like a movie.
It was quite fun. I mean, I met James and sort of wanted to sort of work in the stores to get some practical experience and so on before I went back to Hong Kong. And I think James has basically said no. I'm not going to hand over my secrets to some guy I don't know. And it was one of the things we sort of somehow got on, and we said we'd stay in touch, and I was looking for someone to help me, advise me, and so on. He wanted someone to run the business, to take a franchise potentially. I wasn't really interested in that. I kind of wanted to do my own thing. But it was one of those things where you sort of, we said we'd stay in touch, and we said, let's have a call before I went, and we kept on playing phone tag. And I was like, what's the point?
Yeah,
Should I make this call? And then made the call, finally connected again, and he said, oh, why don't you come in? I'm looking for an MD at the point. Maybe there's something that we could figure out. So I ended up literally, I was flying out on a Thursday for good. And this was a Friday before when we had that second conversation. And he said, come in on Monday. So I had a farewell party on a Saturday night, ready to ship out. And then Monday we ended up chatting in sort of 3-4 hours together, and that's how it started, and ended up sort of crazily joining the business. Sort of taking it from where it was, and I took the books back to Hong Kong for 2 weeks holiday instead. I was like, this is interesting. We had a negative balance sheet. What does that mean? This is our starting point, which was exciting. But I mean, I was like, there's some interesting sort of things that we'll need to do pretty quickly. So that was the starting point, and to some extent, I sort of it was described to me as driving 100 miles an hour with a flat tire, trying to change that flat tire without stopping. So it felt kind of like that, but that's where you partly learn and you grow from it. So
nice. And then once you got into that business, what were you finding? How many? So this was just at store one?
No, we had 7 stores, 7 sites at the time.
Right.
And I guess what I did was something, I guess maybe slightly different at the time. I was kind of doing what you would imagine undercover boss did before it existed. So I actually went into the business, and what I wanted to do was to work in all the different stores, work in the kitchen, did the deliveries, the whole thing, without the team really knowing who I was, because I wanted to understand what it was like to be trained up. As though I was a new recruit. I mean, I look kind of young, act kind of youthful in a way, immature, you might say. But back then, 15 years ago as well. So I actually, very specifically wanted to understand how the business operated, because I felt that, you get that view once only. You only ever get that view, and then once people know who you are, everything, behaviors modify and so on. So if I went in as the MD at the time, it would have been very, very different. People are sort of don't open up in the same way. So it's
like the air smells of polish. The people have been cleaning before you come in and all that stuff.
And I wanted very much to also know people as people. I think that was actually one of the primary drivers as well, was to actually understand people without all the all the titles and rubbish that comes, expectations that come with that. And it was super fascinating. I mean, I saw all sorts of stuff. But I spent.
Do you want to share that?
Some really interesting stuff, which happens in every business, right? I'm sure still happens to some extent, but the difference is that you kind of know. It's coming from a corporate world, to be really getting into the really nitty-gritty hands-on side of things, you've got to have that feel, otherwise you just don't know what's going on. So part of that was really understanding sort of also motivations of different team members and staff and managers, and how it all interrelated, and what could we do together better, I guess. A lot of it stemmed from I did engineering at university, and part of my degree I had to work with 5 different companies on a sort of it was a co-op program. And the first company I worked with, my first summer, was with Kellogg's in Kellogg's breakfast cereals in back in Sydney. And we were supposed to be the leaders for future leaders for engineering, so they wanted us to make sure that we worked across the whole all over, from the shop floor, drawing room, everything. So that was where we started. I guess the approach I had was really to understand what is it like to be on the shop floor. What can we understand in terms of motivations and so on. And then that's the people that you lead, you've got to have that sort of rapport and understanding. So that I took a lot of that experience and found that was super, super useful. And then sort of put it into the Crussh, and then after that initial period of a couple of months, where I was actually working, I was literally working 6-7 days a week, because I had to get around everything, and then also see what the weekend trade was like in different sites and so on. And I then actually spent another couple of weeks literally interviewing every single person, spending time with every single person in the business. We had about 70 odd people back then, so anyone that was a manager, head office, or I'd probably spent at least an hour with 45 minutes an hour. And then everyone that was a team member up to assistant manager, probably 15 minutes, half an hour, and so on.
Yeah.
But really to get to understand what they were like as people, but also sort of what they thought we could do together to help improve the business, change the business, bring it forward. So yeah, and that was it was nice because as you imagine, when they first announced who I was, there were some faces that dropped, some very worried looks, but it was all good fun.
But I think that's such a smart move, right? In terms of also the difference from where you were. So working in a management consultancy to then working on a shop floor and that must have been, so it's almost like a kind of humbling experience
absolutely.
as well. It's but a big jump.
Yes, but to me, I think that was the only way I would have been able to understand the business.
Yeah.
Like I mean, to me, it was. I didn't know any other way that I would be able to get that sort of understanding and knowledge.
Yeah.
You go in, otherwise you'd be literally bullshitting.
Yeah.
Because you don't have. I mean, I didn't have that sort of experience.
Can you imagine if there was CEOs in our industry bullshitting? There's a few winging it, I think. But what about food knowledge, though? I mean, did you know anything about how these businesses ran at all?
Not specifically. I was very lucky. We had, Nick, who was our ops director. He's a chef by training, and
right.
he knew all of that. And I guess I came with it because I love food. So I've always loved food. Being honky, you'll be always taking photos of food. I'm one of those ones. You'll be taking the photos of food just
even
because
before Instagram.
Well before that, and just because I love food. And if you grew up in Hong Kong, you'd understand that I guess you go anywhere in the world, you see a bunch of Hong Kong Chinese people, the food is generally good there. Sort of congregating, and for me, sort of having that sort of food culture growing up in the 70s and 80s in Hong Kong, and then moving to Australia where everything was also really fresh. And I mean, look at what's happened in London. I think that we've, as Antipodeans, sort of brought a whole lot of that Australian sort of New Zealand, if you like, brunch culture, all this sort of stuff. And I'd like to think back then we were the start of bringing some of that sort of thinking across to London. So from that perspective, I just love food, and to be able to sort of be very lucky, privileged to be able to sort of get into that side of things where I'm able to come up with recipes and things like that with Nick, together, sort of coming up with crazy ideas and seeing it sort of happen.
But also I get the feeling that the market met you. Which then
I think it took a long time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, for you to ride that out and not all of a sudden go, oh, we're just going to sell sandwiches then, or and buckle. I think you have to be in a good position financially to ride that out.
Yes, but also it comes from a principles perspective.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we talk about businesses now being with purpose and so on. I guess we started from that fundamental purpose, back then, and we stuck to it. And then that, you're right. I mean, come recession time, it was not easy. It was much easier to flog bacon sandwiches. But is that what we are? Is that who we are? No. How do you? It's not that we don't do bacon, but it's got to be in the right context with a range of things that that support being healthier, tasty, easier.
I'm racking my brain. There was a really good example the other day where someone's just caved, like they've completely caved their business model. I need to try and think who it is when I put it in the podcast notes. But and I just was shocked at this thing going, oh my God, like you're going to be doing what now? And it's just, they're just grabbing the market. Oh, I know what it was. It's a restaurant in Brighton.
Right.
And it's called The Set. And the whole concept was set menu.
Oh, right.
And now they've folded. I mean, lovely menu, lovely food and all the rest of it. But they've changed the entire thing now to be a la carte. And you're like, that was actually such a good, obviously, maybe financials is driving it, this or that, and don't get me wrong, great place to eat.
Yeah.
But just when I saw it, I was like, like Pizza Express selling kebabs, I don't know. Do you know, it's just what?
Yeah.
So that was a weird one. So I think for anyone listening as well, like, defining your brand, B, actually having a purpose, probably before you define your brand, because so many don't, they spot a commercial opportunity, but then sticking to your principles even when the going is so tough. And I always think about Leon in this situation as well. They rode it out for a long time before it clicked to go, oh right, now I get it. You know, where's the fridge full of sandwiches, or where's the coffee board even, or you know, it was just all a bit like. Whereas now it's like, you know, just nailed. So, in terms of Crussh then as well, what was the moment that it sort of clicked then? So when did you get the tyre on and get back into the car?
I don't know, it feels like it's always been like that. It's I think it's one of those things. I think, you know, I slightly go back to, you know, when I first joined the business. You know, it was interesting what I drew from the consulting experience. I actually thought it was going to be a lot of the technical skills, for example, that I would bring into it. Sure, yes, brought all that, but actually it was about creating, you know, this vision, sort of principles and all these sort of things that sort of that thinking of, you know, bringing that across. And once you set that into place, then it was about sort of bringing the rest of it and executing through, you know, a series of things. Now, it's never perfect. I mean, it's scrappy, it's painful, it's challenging, it's all those sort of things, because you're resource constrained, you know, always. And people think, you know, oh, you know, you can solve it because, you know, just hire people. You don't. You've got. It's not like a corporate world. You know, in the entrepreneurial world, you're always juggling. I've got X. I need X plus 3X. What do I do with that little bit of X? And you're deploying that in a way. And it's very, very, very different. So it's always been a journey, I think. But it started clicking, I think, you know, especially towards, you know, again, timing, just before the recession of 2007, you know, we were on humming, you know, we were growing, and then, of course, everything started changing, right? So you've got a number of things going on that, that interplay, and then, boom, becomes very, very interesting.
Well, I think, you know, I think also just sticking to that fresh juice and all that, what I always think about is, what if one breaks? How many have you got in the store? Have you got like a couple of spares kicking about, or what? Like what? No. So if it breaks, it's just done.
Well, the thing, I mean, I guess there are some backstops to an extent, you know, and you know, I think, you know, when we went through the recession, it was very, very tight. You know, very tight. I mean, you know, that's where you, just as a CEO, I guess, you cut your teeth to some extent. You know, there are things I would have done differently, you know, had I acted more quickly, sort of thing. You know, I think one of the things was we were hitting a point where when you turned into recession, sales dropped out. I guess you know, maybe naively, whatever, thought that you could build back the sales, right? But actually, you know, I think this is partly where our board comes into it. You know, James is the founder. You know, you know, we've got to cut our costs. You know, according, you know, you're gonna cut your cloth according. So to yourself, so you can't assume you're gonna be able to build that up. Just assume that's where it is and it's going to go down. Cut. So, you know, we were able to do that. I mean, it's one thing knowing that you have to do it. It's another thing then executing on that. You know, because a lot of that time was also around dealing with sort of landlords, and, you know, I mean, what we're seeing now is a repeat of a lot of that happening. You know, how do you manage that side of things? Because ultimately, you know, when you're sitting across from a landlord and saying, look, you know, how do we get through this together? They've got to believe that actually you genuinely need the help and you're genuinely going to be able to pull through. It's not a fundamental problem with the business. You know? And so that execution part, all very good in theory, but executing, that's the test.
And I think also you were so good at innovating and pioneering, right? So many firsts. So do you want to tell us a bit about those?
Well, I guess the innovation part, I think, you know, stems from, well, if we go back to, you know, when I joined the business and we looked at it, you know, what is our philosophy around what we do? And it was around, and it still is, around being healthier, tastier, easier. And, you know, we did all the branding stuff and things like that. And we, you know, internally we were, you know, fighting about the, you know, is it healthy? Is it speedy? Is it, you know, that sort of thing? And we were like, no, it's got to be that IER. That IER drove everything because it meant that you baked in innovation. Right, you baked in progress. You baked in the fact that you could never stand still, because healthy meant different things to different people. And at different times, I mean, think about it now. Healthy, fat is healthy. sugar is not.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas, before low fat was great, which was driven by sugar,
Yeah.
right? And fat was not no good.
Yeah.
So healthy changes and depending on research on things, how we go through sort of life and so on. So you got a 180-degree swing from literally from what is perceived to be healthy. So the IER meant that there was also recognition that that I might want to have an organic organic chicken sandwich, but at that time I'm not going to pay £7 for that. So there's a commerciality around that. So the IER meant that it was always about being healthier, tastier, and easier than what else is available. So you're pegging yourself in the market, and at times if other competitors went ahead, and they said, okay, hang on, we've got to up our game, and you're constantly regenerating and moving forward. And it also meant that there was more, I think, flexibility in terms of product range. Not just tied to you have to do this because it's healthier, tastier, easier. Things change. So as an example, juices, period of time where it went from being seen as healthy and then all of a sudden there's too much sugar in there. But we were ahead of that because we moved to green juices. We had veggie juices and the green goddess and all that. So we were one of the first, kale back then, back in several years ago. We had a lot of firsts, and even when I joined, we had our dairy-free organic porridge. We were actually the first to put it on the high street.
I remember trying it because we were working with a competitor.
Yes.
And we were checking you out.
And everyone was trying to work out how we did it because, and I know that also from our suppliers. It's like people trying to copy that, and they're like, no. So
of course.
So we were quite well ahead of the game, and I mean, if you think about how much business Pret does in porridge now, right? I mean, it was a big thing when you guys, at that time Pret launched it, but we've been doing that for quite a long time, and then Eat sort of did it, and then and so on. So there was we were always quite ahead, and we've done things like the zero noodles, which we did a while back, and now I think Itsu did it a couple of years ago. But we had done that sort of 4 years prior to that or something. So lots of things that we try to continuously sort of push it. Smart coffee, bulletproof coffee.
Bulletproof coffee, I remember. But what about so where were you getting your inspiration from then? For that stuff.
I like to eat. So a lot of it was driven because I guess genuinely like to eat and so part of it is from travel, right? You go traveling.
I was going to say, I think that's such an advantage.
Always a key part. But also having lived in different places, having grown up in Asia, in Australia, where especially for healthy food, we're I always look at what's going on in Australia, as Sydney, Melbourne, there's a lot of great things. And Australia punches well above its weight. Look at a lot of the concepts, even Ranger and Co, Caravan, Laura from Caravan, all the guys out, they're doing some great stuff. And to see that sort of bring some of those influences, the US, people say we always copy from the US. And you know what? Yes and no. I think there's as much of us going
I wouldn't
that
have
way.
I wouldn't have pegged that so much.
I think we're ahead on especially London in the last few years in a lot of ways now. Before there are things like smoothies and then it comes across and cold pressed juices that comes across things like that. But
Halloween. Halloween, Black Friday.
Yeah, exactly, Black Friday. But now
we're moving. A week long.
But now we're moving east, right? We're moving China. We're getting singles. Singles Day, 3 billion sales in a day.
It's going crazy.
But
But what's also just a point on innovation. I really liked all your swag and your merchandise, like your bags, and I thought it was really noticeable, how well that was done. I thought. You saw a lot of people, sort of embracing it and walking about. So I think again you were ahead of the curve before the Chili's bottles and the tote bags that everyone's got. I think you're ahead there. Just going back to the Buddhism thing, right? I think it's an important point with how you are and how you do business. And I think there's so much in Crussh, I think, that's based on Buddhism, right? In terms of mindfulness about how you're eating, how much you're having, what you're doing to yourself, things like that, eating from the land and all the rest of it. But also, I think just that kindness that seemed to be there amongst the teams as well. You know, they're just that kind of thing. You know, and I think that's something you almost can't write down. But I think a lot of the Buddhist principles, you know, almost there probably is books on it, but how you can just take that to be equal employee engagement and customer love, you know, that kind of triangulation. I think there's quite a lot of nice things about it.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
sure.
I wouldn't say that's, you know, I mean, that's just me, right? But the principles of how we think about sort of culture and all that, you know, there are elements that definitely come from, you know, an appreciation of, you know, karma and things like that, and how you believe, you know, what that view of the world is. But it's, I mean, it's not, oh yes, let's be
no.
But yes, I mean, there are certain things. I mean, that's, like I said, why I'm doing healthy food as opposed to, you know, as much as I love my steaks and my burgers, I'm not going to do a steak and burger business. That's a personal sort of, you know, decision more than anything. But yeah, I mean, you know, I hope that, you know, there are things around care and compassion that, you know, that come through. Sometimes it doesn't feel like, when, you know, in the moment for the team necessarily that that there's care and compassion. You know, I can be quite hard and direct, but actually underpinning all that, you know, when you're interacting, there's genuine care, just genuine compassion.
But you know, direct communication is
it's
part of that as well.
I think it's much more efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you read sort of Ray Dalio's book on principles.
No.
Ray Dalio's like this super investor and so on. He's put this massive book called Principles, and he talks about sort of radical transparency and so on. So yeah, and his belief that it's very much about actually, you know, look, we want to bat out the ideas and all that. We'll be, you know, very, very sort of hard on the problem. You know, and maybe argumentative, you like, but actually it's a lot more efficient than playing sort of, you know, nicely, because it doesn't really help, right? So it's actually getting to the point and actually testing and really pushing on the thinking behind it. You know, both logically and creatively. So.
And it's not a personal thing. No. You know, and funnily enough, I think, you know, back at our agency, you know, myself, Leo and James have always been that, like, it's never personal. In terms of, and it's very rare that I've worked in an environment that someone doesn't get the hump. When you go, shit idea, mate. You know, but, you know, so I think that's a good thing to just, you know, it's not a personal thing. You say what you say, but I'll not knock it down unless I've got something better. And then you just keep building, you know, so I think that's always a good thing for sure. I think that always helps. So you oversaw as CEO around 30 launches?
Something like that. Yeah.
So any learnings from all of that? That's a lot to do.
I got loads of learnings, I guess. I think, I think planning is always an important thing, and we always say it's like, they're like buses, right? These things, you know, you try to plan for the leases, you try for, you know, okay, you know, the business plan will be one every however, you know, many months and so on, or, you know, X many a year, but they come like buses, you know, nothing in a boom, you know, and it always slightly sort of messes up. And even after 30, you think you'd get much better at it, and you do, but you know, it's always challenging dealing with, in my experience anyway, you know, and with contractors getting things done on time. You know, sometimes it's us, you know, not being as organized or tight in terms of locking things down, you know, because we are adapting and learning and all that. If you've got a massive brand where you've got everything locked down to the bolt, then becomes easier. But then they have that less flexibility, but you have the ability to roll out. I think when you're building a brand, you know, you're trying to put those things in place and you're learning, right? But it's never perfect. And one thing that's never ceased to amaze me is that even with layouts, right? You think, okay, let's try to, you know, this is a broadly rectangular room or a broadly square layout. But the specific geometry of, you know, where the risers are, the little pillars and things like that, throw things completely out of whack. And I still remember we had this site that we were looking at in Spitalfields one time, and someone else ended up taking it because there was a lift shaft, so that sort of went sort of nicely rectangular, but there was a lift shaft sort of that jutted out into the middle of it, which was exactly where we needed to put our juice bar, the blender bar. So that meant that you just had no clearance. So I'm like, it's like every other thing, it's rectangular, but that little jutting out meant that, because of the rest of the doorways, you know, everything else meant that it's impossible to do. So things like that, you you learn, you try to standardize as much as you can, but it's constantly evolving. And then I guess from the launch perspective, I think one of the things we, in the early days, we would get everything built, everything set up, get the team together and so on, and then we would just do the marketing and open up and just go, right? I think as we developed and grew and we had more external sort of area managers coming aboard and understood how sort of the larger companies sort of operated, we were, I guess, more confident and comfortable in taking, hey, let's take a few days out when it's all ready, train the team and simulate things and all that, and then sort of open the doors. And I think that was a cultural slight change just in terms of perspective of, we just got to open, to actually, hey, it's better off spending that extra time and then opening it out and then having the marketing go alongside that.
And you were cool with that, or were you in the impatient entrepreneur camp of just get it open?
I think it was very much get it open. I think we're all in that camp. It was just part of it was seeing that actually, if you did it this way, those 2-3 days actually didn't matter
in the grand scheme of
things. Because actually it was more about sort of there's a whole bunch of things, and when we were doing the rebrands, we had to rebrand the whole estate. We took that as an opportunity as well, to re-energize the team, say, hey, this is the reason why we're doing this. There's a lot of effort that's gone into this. It's your store, take care of it. Love your customers. Come back and so on. So. Yeah.
And was there like a best-selling product, or what was going on there? Was it juices, or was it other things that you didn't expect?
Well, I think your juices, the smoothies, a lot of it's seasonal.
Right.
Okay, so there's an element of seasonality, but the great thing about Crussh is that we've got that breadth of range of products. You've got the hot soups and so on, and stews and all that. So when it's winter, it counteracts off of the smoothies and vice versa, and salads and so on. The challenging thing is actually crossover seasons when you gotta have stock of those. But I mean, for a long period of time, especially more recently, all the green juices were flying off. We had our chicken chili's been there since day one.
Right.
It's constantly a real staple. And then we've got all our health pots that so there's each category does its thing.
Because there's always a sucker for the tuna. With the chickpea and
the tuna lean bean.
Really kind of vinegary sort of thing.
The tuna lean bean.
Was always a
that was always a very I mean, we created that category, if you like, quite a long time ago, probably back in, I think the first one we did was 2004 or something like that. We created this, we called it health pots then.
Right.
And that tuna lean bean was one of the original ones, actually.
I was a sucker for it. I loved it. And then, just sort of finishing up on Crussh, because we've got so much more to talk about. Just what were the main highlights for you then, over your career there? I know you're still involved, but...
Well, I'm slightly involved, but it's... No, I mean, there are loads. I mean, I think... Well, I guess some of them are actually not business per se. I mean, the highlights of... Part of it's actually, being there for, 13 years and seeing going from turnaround to growth, recession, and then growth again. Knowing people, and a lot of my team, managers, head office, it's stuck throughout thick and thin for over 10 years. I mean, to the tenure of some of my managers, for such a long period of time. Then just see them develop. So we've now got families. So people grow up, get married, have kids. That sort of thing. And seeing the kids go. That's kind of. You still think, wow, actually, there's a responsibility that I guess as a leader of any business you have over your people and your team. And to see that was kind of quite sort of I guess a highlight.
It's kind of magical, isn't it?
And then things like also from a perspective of I guess making healthy eating, actually trying to mainstream that more and more into the consciousness. I mean, now everyone's doing it, but we were really pioneering, and it's like when you're educating, it's expensive, and you're pushing up, uphill, massively. But to see that sort of I guess change in food culture in London as well, across the board is really really nice. And then on the business perspective, I think. We ended up, so winning different awards, whether it was, juices, juice of the year or smoothie of the year or group operator in one time, and then getting onto cool brands as well, which was quite interesting. To see that being part of the, I guess, understanding actually how brands can pull and push, because we, I guess, have sort of views on what a brand can and cannot do. But when we swung from the bright orange to the sort of much more muted colors, right, it really showed, and there was a lot of internal debate. I mean, most internal arguments and so on, as you can imagine, right? But what it did show was the fact that actually by changing the branding, as long as you get, the brand is not the physical elements, it's not the logo, it's not the packaging. Yes, that's part of it, but it's the principles that we have, our culture, the people that we had, the principles, the promise, all that sort of stuff. And actually, your customers will come with you because all those other things stay constant, consistent, if you like, right, and congruent. But what it physically looks like, there's actually a lot more leeway than one might expect if you have the other things right.
If you've got credit in the bank.
But if you think about it the other way around, it doesn't actually work. If you change, you change your values all the time, like you're saying, you end up losing your customers. Yeah,
because they're confused.
Yeah.
And if you're confused, they're definitely going to be confused, and that's where you lose,
Yeah, and so there are things like that, and it's also nice to see, I guess, the longevity of some of the customers. I think there's, I'm thinking, Jimmy Page.
Right. Okay.
This is a random story. Okay,
Uh-huh.
So I've got a couple of random stories here. So Jimmy Page, right? It has been a customer. I don't know how often he's come in, but I know he's spanned probably 15 years, 12, 13, 15 years, whatever it is, as a customer of Crussh.
Wow.
The reason I know that is because I know that's probably about a couple of years ago, there was all the press with him coming out of a Notting Hill store, with his girlfriend, and he was drinking our sort of big green, like full-size green goddess and so on, wheatgrass and all that. But I knew that he was a customer back in when I first joined, 2003 time, because in our Curzon Street store, we had Pietro was an Italian guy, and when the stores closed, they got to clean up the juice machines and all that, and apparently Jimmy Page still came in till like 5 minutes after closing, and normally they said, we're closed, sorry, that sort of that's the normal sort of response you would get. But Pietro was a guitarist, and he said, Jimmy Page, of course, you want a wheatgrass? Oh, open the machine up. You want a juice? What am I giving you? So it sort of got fed back to this on Curzon Street, on Mayfair side. So so it was quite popular. So we have very loyal customers that have been with us for a long time, and I guess that's a highlight. That's being proud of that, and we provide. We've been serving in Buckingham Palace and things like that.
Wow.
And Prince Harry's come in, in the High Street Ken store. Some funny stories there too. So.
Whoa, that's cool. I think there's a ginger joke in there somewhere, but we won't do it. We won't do it.
I'll tell you what it was. He I think Prince Harry came in one time with his minders and so on, and he ordered a breakfast bowl, and breakfast bowl is not something that, as a first timer to Crussh, you would ever, you have to know, you've got to be like sort of an advanced customer, reasonably sort of
up the
up the ramp sort of thing, and it's in the High Street Ken. Now we had a team member who was on the till, didn't know anybody, he had a cap.
Right, undercover.
But he paid with a 20 quid note, and because High Street Ken's full of tourists and all that, and lots of fake notes circulating, we always asked the guys, back then to sort of, check it. So he picks out the UV pen or whatever, scribbles over grandma's face. So the manager's in the back. It's like, this was a shortcake. But the team had no idea.
Is that like a treason thing? You scribble over Lizzie's face.
Yeah. But anyway, but I think actually we must be, because we opened up Crown Passage, which is by Buckingham Palace in 2012, I guess, which was Olympics time and so on, and we started supplying the. I think actually after 5 years, technically speaking, maybe we should be looking for that royal warrant.
Yeah, point.
The royal warrant for healthy food. So anyway,
Well, and it was an important point you made earlier as well, which is it is tough when you're not only trying to promote your brand, but also be a pioneer for this new category.
Yeah.
That's a heavy weight on your shoulders. You know, because if the health thing was there already and you were out and you were doing it better, or someone else had broke the concrete for you or laid the foundations, then you could zoom off.
Yes,
but you're doing a dual job there, and you're a start-up, and you don't have loads of budget, and you don't have loads of resource. Tough.
It's not easy, and
tough gig.
You know, a lot of what I'm looking at now in the food tech space is around, actually, one of the big questions is timing. Right? Is it, you know, why now, sort of thing? And when you're looking at, you know, an investment or whatever, whereas, you know, I guess we just did it because we believed in it. It's like,
would you do it again?
Well, I would adjust my timing quite differently.
So, just in terms of, you know, the CEO standpoint, you know, what kind of CEO were you? You know, what did you learn from being a CEO? How did, you know, what have you taken from that for, you know, what you're doing now?
Yeah, so, interesting. We'll ask the team.
Hold up the mirror.
So I'm sure I did a million things terribly, and hopefully one or two things okay. It's one of those things that I think, you know, I look back and reflect on, you know, on it, and in terms of, you know, what is the CEO role, and sort of, and more from an entrepreneurial leadership perspective. And I think the things that, you know, for me that sort of stand out is, one is that as the CEO, you're sort of like, you know, you're always wanting to look out for the next wave. You're like, you know, you're like the analogy is like being a surfer. You're sitting on the wave and you're waiting for the wave to come in, but you've always got to keep an eye out for the next wave to make sure you catch the right one that takes you all the way in. Because if you miss it, you know, you get
slammed.
You get slammed or whatever it may be. So part of the job is to that future, you know, hence the innovation and the IER, the healthier, tastier, easier. It's always saying, okay, what's next? Because an example there is cold pressed juices. Okay, I was looking at cold pressed juices. I knew about all this, you know, happening from the US, you know, coming and so on, and I still remember saying to my guys, you know, we're doing fresh pressed juices, right? Cold press is, you know, through a press, but you bottle it and it has 3 days unpasteurized life. Is it healthier? Okay, US, with all the marketing, believes it is. You know, is it really? Question mark.
Healthier?
Yeah, question mark. All right, question mark. And if it is, to me, it's marginal in reality, right? Now, actually, it doesn't matter what I think, what I believe. The market in the US believes that cold press is a thing. So how do we then manage that, which is fundamentally against our whole business, which is around fresh pressed juices, right? We believe you fresh press it, within 15 minutes, all the goodness starts oxidizing, which is why you want to drink it right away, right? Cold press is kind of slightly, you know, you can keep it for 3 days, and it's in a bottle and so on. So what happened was, like, I was like, you know what, we need to be on top of this. We need to actually understand it ourselves, do it ourselves, and so on. Why? Because I was like, yeah, at that time, there were sort of the delivery only sort of cold press sort of operations. There wasn't any retail, and this was like I sort of remember it was the beginning of the year, like January sort of time, and I was saying, you know, to the team, we've got to do cold press and so on, and I said the reason is, I reckon, right, my bet was that in sort of September, October time, we will have our first bricks and mortar sort of cafe doing cold press. And my rationale for that was actually, it's all embedded, and I bet you people working on it now. I had no idea who was, but, you know, I'm sure people are working on it now. But because they're first timers, they will have expected to open for summer. But because it's the first time, these things delayed, they will end up opening at the end of summer.
October.
And sure enough, I think it was Good Life Eatery and a few others back then. That was, you know, sort of towards the end of summer when the first one started coming up, and I was like, and we've been doing it on a soft basis for events and things like that, and we end up buying our, you know, big juicer and so on and so forth. But it was very interesting because if you actually understand the whole cold press versus fresh press, people that were doing cold press were all espousing the wonders of it, and, you know, the fact that it was organic and you know, better yield and all that. Well, technically speaking, then, it's better yield. You should get more for your money. It should be cheaper,
Yeah.
Right, but
true.
it was £7, for a juice compared to £3, £4 for for a fresh pressed juice.
Yeah.
What no one was actually saying was the fact that the reality of it was that all of that extra cost was not in it being organic or better or whatever. It was all in labor, because it took up to 10 minutes, right, in practical reality,
Really?
to squeeze and get the juice and pack it and all that sort of stuff. So, but because the cold press guys were only doing cold press, and fresh press were only doing fresh press, but we ended up doing both. So the reality was actually, well, cold press is a great option if you want to grab and go for us.
Yeah.
It meant that we could do delivery in a way that was consistent with our values. And that was the interesting part, because for the longest time I wanted to do bottle delivery, but I was like, can't do it because it goes against sort of kind of our principle in a way. So, you could make it and transport it, but it wasn't, bottled, if you like. Whereas cold press allowed us to do that and still stay true to our principles. So it's see, that's one of those things.
Tricky.
So,
but it's still in line. It's still in line with the dream for sure.
No, absolutely.
I don't think you strayed at all. So, what about now? So what's going on now? What you spend, apart from having lunch with me the other day? How are we spending your time? What's going on?
I guess I'm spending my time sort of focused much more on food tech, food tech, education, and EdTech as a minor. But the food tech element is exciting for me. It's stuff that I've been looking for quite a long time actually. But when you're running a business, you just have no, you're focused on doing one thing. Now that I'm out of the business and I'm almost like a kid in a candy store, because I've got, I guess, a view of how the whole food tech sort of trends and things like that are happening, and I'm effectively getting involved, placing bets, if you like, on things that I believe could be winners. So I guess what's happening, you can see on the high street, right? Bricks and mortar, especially now, we've had all the different challenges of the CVAs and all that. Reality, from my perspective, is that was all entirely sort of to be expected. From a couple of years ago, even from before Brexit, I could see that sort of happening. I actually remember being at a dinner with it was like a Grant Thornton dinner or something like that, with Luke Johnson, and he was talking about what's happening with the high street and all that. And back then I was like, what? Crussh had a central kitchen, has a central kitchen. So we have a slightly different model to like a Pret, where you're building everything, making everything on site. But I could see back then actually there's all these opportunities that that actually, if you for the whole delivery, that whole side of things, that was opening up, that in a way that a typical sort of restaurant would not even understand or think about. So we could turn what is a negative to a positive, and really sort of understand direct to consumer. Right, and I still think that's a massive opportunity. And I think this is the stuff that Gary Vee's been talking about, and so on. How do you understand using digital side of things getting to the customer? So I think what's happened, if you look at sort of previous recessions, I guess earlier recessions you had Pret and Starbucks. They made hay, because what happened was A1, A3, you have all the A1 retailers, so furniture stores, computer stores, fashion. In a recession, they're the first ones to go out. Right? But food, everyone's got to eat, so you stay there. And then in the recession, no one else is coming in, but the food guys. That's when I think Pret and Starbucks they built their estate in the recession, because they're able to get good sites then. And then as the economy picks up again, all the other A1 retailers come back in, and then you get back to that status quo. What's happened, the last recession that we had, the big one, 2008, 2009, all that, it was so big, but it masked a fundamental structural change. This is why I say, to me, it's inevitable. The fundamental structural change is the fact that everyone went out, but actually they've gone out, and when things move back up again, you've only had food, because HMV, you look at music, you look at all these different retailers, their model's been disaggregated by the internet. Whereas for us, we're the last sector to be, and we're slow, we're super slow, we're super behind. We really are so far behind, and most of the industry still doesn't really understand that. So what's happened, instead of having 7 sort of non-food retail and 3 food retail on the high street, we've now flipped it over so that there's 3 sort of non-food, 7 food. Well, you've just more than doubled your competition, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Then you've got Brexit for currency, then you've got labour, you've got everything else, business rates and so on. And the reason for going into the high street, or going onto the high street to shop in the old days, it's no longer there. And part of this, I mean, I guess I've been sort of figuring this out and seeing this because I could see what was happening in the years of how High Street Kensington used to sort of operate. We used to have a thing where just before Christmas we would be really busy because everyone was doing the last minute shopping.
Yeah.
Then you started having the internet sort of Amazon things, and you didn't get that bump because people had already bought it or they bought it online the last minute. It just, so that structural change was happening well before then.
Well, it was
and
even,
now it's just
It was even, I was at lastminute.com in 2005, and Brent was saying to me, he's like, you need to flip people that are going to go out into the high street. This was way early,
Yeah.
And so I remember, it may even have been 2006 maybe, but we were the first to do the LED signs on buses.
Oh, right, yeah.
And what we managed to do was we managed to link the ads to real time to see what temperature it was.
Okay.
And we could also change the font, change the wording, depending on which area of London the bus was going to.
Oh, brilliant.
So it would go, Whitechapel, it's -2,
Yeah.
go home, order your Christmas on lastminute.com.
Right.
And we were doing toys, experience days,
Yeah.
Restaurant bookings, theatre tickets, this, that. So so even back then, but I think you're right, that actually we're in a lucky position being who we are, restaurants and hospitality and this and that, because we've seen everyone fall first. So we should be learning from it, no?
That's exactly the point, right? Which is why the food tech thing is, to me, we're at the start of a 15, 20, 50-year journey, as the last sort of large sort of retail sector to be disaggregated by the internet, because we couldn't email food before, whereas you could download music files, you could send fashion clothing that did not need to be chilled or heated. But now with Deliveroo, Uber Eats, all this sort of, there's a whole bunch of different things going on. That's all changed. And I think the whole industry is really still, I think getting to understand, but they don't really deeply understand how existential I think it really is, because we're people are still dabbling on the digital side in a way that is dabbling when you compare it to other industries.
Dabbling.
And I think the chats we've had in the past, right? I think you can. But some of the frustrations you've had is that it's very much dabbling. It's okay. 3 tweets a day. Oh, here we go. It's not. It's such a different world.
No SEO, no PPC, no visual merchandising, no Facebook advertising. If they do, it's 2 ads instead of 200. No segmentation. You're just like, but it's exciting for the people that choose to, next year or this year when they're planning their budgets for next year, they choose to just flick that switch to go, we'll go 90% digital. And, because there'll still be some, there'll still be some offline stuff.
There's always going to be offline, there's always going to be the experience, there's still going to be bricks and mortar, that's not going to change.
No.
It's not, you're not going to substitute, that completely, because it's part of it. But, I look at, I guess, the restaurant groups, the casual, the large sort of things. If they're not careful, I think, right, that they won't have a sustainable business model. It's simple as that. It's and I'm not sure, and again, I don't know, how they are addressing it, because I don't see it being addressed in the way I'd imagine it kind of needs to be. It's very much you take a spectrum. It's no longer so online offline. It's a spectrum. And that whole direct consumer piece is the part that is kind of really something that needs to be understood. And I'll give the example, I'm involved with Past Evangelists, or, one of the business I'm an advisor with.
Bunch of superstars, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Alex is the founder.
Giles.
Yeah, Prue, Giles, and William are the evangelists. I'm just in the background as an advisor.
And you're the hand shots.
But but I mean, to see, Alex is the founder. We spoke together, when it was literally an idea on a piece of paper, and we were talking about sort of, how to think through it and so on. And you know what? We've just opened in Harrods in the food hall.
Yeah.
Super exciting, right? Now, if you imagine that, so bricks and mortar was probably, I don't know, a year 3 plan for what Pastor Evangelists were going to do originally. It was very much around direct to consumers, subscriptions, and sort of a bit like a HelloFresh, meal kit through your door, blah blah blah. We all know that like a Harrods or Selfridges or any of these things, they take a huge chunk of rent, for sure. And previously, I looked at sort of deals like that, so I can't get the numbers to work. I just can't. But here's a startup within 18 months that actually has the ability, that has potential to be able to get it to work, because they have so many channels. Right? You can do stuff in the store. You can have subscriptions. You can use That's the part that I think bricks and mortar business.
It's actually a marketing play, isn't it?
I mean, think of it as lead gen if you want to.
Yeah.
But you have something to lead gen for.
Yes.
Right? As a bricks and mortar, unless you can drive people into your store or have some sort of online channel that you can sell product, you can't. Right? So therefore, you've just cut out 4 channels, right? And so you're working on one cylinder out of 4. So it really is a spectrum. So how do you then understand that actually, you've got to build all those up from a bricks and mortar business. So hence me being interested in food tech and much less in the bricks and mortar, because unless you fully understand that play, you're going to get caught out potentially.
I think there's so many interesting things you just said. So anyone listening is start thinking like an e-com business. So start thinking like Past Evangelists. And I'm so happy when it comes up on my Facebook all the time, and because I'm going, they're targeting me, I'm seeing it all the time, and I'm going to do it. It's just a matter of time. I'm going to do it, right? I need to. Very pleased the other day, I saw some real high grade video in there showing what was going on and how to do it and this and that. So I was like, great, this is excellent. So I think lessons for us in our industry, if I take hotels out of it, is take a leaf out of hotels' books, and in that sense, take a leaf out of e-com. So if you would do worse than just unpick and reverse engineer HelloFresh, Past Evangelists, understand what you've done, and just do that, and that you would do far worse is your starting point. And also, I think hotels really get it.
Yes.
Maybe not as much social, I think,
but they get experience.
But, they get experience, but also they understand the power of SEO, PPC, TripAdvisor, that digital ecosystem, and the pre-booking email, the during the stay email, the after, all this. And also, just to talk about budgets for a sec as well, just came out of a meeting with a holiday company, I can't say too much, but, the conversation is, we've got tens of millions of pounds to spend, and we might be spending it wrong. Could you, could we have a look? That's the difference, because the ambition is there. And I'm not saying that everyone's got tens of millions, but if you proportion that down, the bigger restaurant groups probably aren't that far away from making what this company's making. And they'll be trying to spend one.
Well,
and badly.
Well, I'll give you the example. I mean, you think about, FMCG companies, CPG. You go on a supermarket shelf, and it goes through, the Nestle's, Unilevers of the world, and all that. They have never really understood their end customer, because it was the gatekeeper was always the Sainsbury's, the Tesco's, the retailers of the world that sort of had the customer, and they have to sort of somehow go around it with marketing and all that sort of thing. So as a retailer, you always had more, Nectar card and all that sort of stuff. You had that power of understanding the customer's behavior and so on. That's what Dunhamby and all that has just built the whole sort of business out of. Now we're in a different world now, because us as in bricks and mortar retailers, we used to say that compared to say an innocent bottle smoothie with a smoothie in the store, I would know my customers so much more because I can interact with them. I see the behaviors there and so on. I know what the trends are, and I can I'm much more nimble than an FMCG sort of company. But now we're being cut out of the thing because D2C guys going straight to the customer, and you know actually who they are. So we don't actually know our customers. Like, we've got 50, 60,000 customers. I don't know their names and what their Facebook profile is and all that sort of stuff. But all the D2C businesses know exactly every time you look on it, every time you click on this, you're interested in that, all that sort of stuff. That rich data means that they're going to leapfrog all these bricks and mortar businesses. So unless the bricks and mortar sort of understands that, I guess from my perspective, I'm just not interested. And one of the businesses I'm involved in is Mr. Lee's Noodles. Just came from a board meeting, but it's an FMCG business, if you like, healthy instant pot noodles. Right now, you might think, oh well, that's FMCG, but the reason I got involved was because they've got smart vending machines. Right, so I look at this as, this is a proprietary distribution channel. It's actually direct to consumer because they've got analytics on on the smart vending machine and all sorts of really cool stuff that they can do to understand who their customer is. So you've got a direct channel.
They've got analytics on the vending machine.
Yeah. So you can do some really sort of interesting stuff, and you can understand your customer in a different way. So that's really exciting. So I'm like, okay, there's a D2C part, there's a whole ecosystem, right? Right. Another thing I'm involved in is Cheerfy.
Yes, I'm meeting up soon.
Okay, yeah. So Adrian's doing great things, and what it is a Wi-Fi customer engagement sort of platform for bricks and mortar businesses to understand, so there's like social wireless, there's different Captini, things like that. But I think Cheerfy is best of breed. Part of the reason I got involved with them, because when I first met Adrian, I was like, I didn't quite get it. And I looked at it and I was like, that's exactly what I was trying to solve for when I was operating Crussh, but it didn't exist at the time. And that's actually giving you the power almost of sort of this, loyalty, the Nectar card sort of rich data that you can actually do much more than just have data. You can engage, you can profile, you can reward, you can get feedback. That then helps. So you kind of almost trying to level the playing field a little bit with the D2C guys. And there's so much more that you could do. And I don't know. I'm sure Nick probably doesn't mind saying, but Nick from Taylor Street Baristas is one of the first to use Cheerfy. And Nick's a good buddy.
He's a lovely fellow.
He's a great guy, and he's one of the guys, relatively few guys in our industry that I consider tech forward. Really tech forward. There's a handful, and he's definitely one of them. So when Adrian, sort of told me that that's who he was working with, I was like, okay, chick. It's like, okay, if Nick likes it, that means it's going to work. And we're getting like, 60. If you engage with the platform, you get a 60% increase in your return visits and things like that. So that part is really sort of, again, understanding the customer, and we've started to lose that as bricks and mortar business. And we're ceding that sort of ground to the D2C businesses. So until you figure out a way to bridge that gap, it's gonna be challenging.
And also, just even on a practical level, I was at a restaurant the other night, and I had my table with my mate, and they weren't serving us, so they sat us down, and then just no one's coming, and you're going, and 3 delivery drivers got served, and we didn't. And so there's an integration. I know that's a very real example, but there's an integration and there's a clumsiness where you want it all to work sort of seamlessly. But it just felt like an absolute kick in the teeth. Where you're sitting there going, does anyone want to get us a drink? Or and it just 3 delivery drivers' bags.
So don't get me started on that. Because to me this is the whole thing. I think these platforms, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, all the guys doing this. I think they're here to stay. But for the operator, but it's not a balanced ecosystem. This is part of, I guess, the challenge I have with it is actually operators kind of get screwed, right? And now the official line, of course, is we're taking we're not substituting a sale in the restaurant. We're taking it from the cooking at home sort of experience, right? Now, that may be the case on the surface, but what's actually happening, the real thing that's happening, which again I think most operators don't fully understand or can articulate it, is the fact that actually, if I have my meat liquor sort of down in Dulwich that I love. Now if I go and get Deliveroo and I have my meat liquor burger at home, guess what happens, right? I'll have it. Tastes great, right? But that's poor quality earnings because you've given away 25-30% to Deliveroo or whatever, and all of a sudden next time I go out for a meal, and let's say I want a burger, I'm actually unlikely to go to meat liquor. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Okay.
Right? I might go for non-burger meal, or because I only have so many dining occasions. So while you have actually gotten that sale on a sale that wouldn't have otherwise happened, you've traded a poor quality sale, right? And next time when I do go out, I don't have that, or I do that several times, and all of a sudden I'm like, 40 quid for 2 burgers. How did that happen? You feel like, because now people have started changing the menus, the pricing to accommodate for the cost of the logistics, right? But in our head, it's like, geez, that's expensive, and I'm eating at home. What's going on, right? So then you have a few of these, and the thing is, it's subconscious, right? You don't notice, and all of a sudden, like, okay, I haven't been into, a meat liquor or bricks and mortar for a while now, and then when I do go in, then you have your experience. I'm sitting there, I order it, I'm looking forward to it, and I got 3 Deliveroo's, so my in-store, in-restaurant experience is also, so that happens over a 6-month period and all that, chip, and it's human behavioral stuff. And I think that's the challenge, which I think a lot of operators haven't really grasped, the interplay of that.
I think they should be embraced, but I think there's some work to do to work on those commission levels, and it's feeling a bit much.
Yeah, we know how hard it is to make money.
Away, right?
But it's here to stay.
It's tricky. And then anything else in terms of what you're doing now? So you've got like Ned stuff, investment stuff, and what else is going on?
So I'm involved with the education side. So I sit on the council for the University of Gloucestershire. It's pretty random, but I'm really enjoying because again, the education part. Now I've got young kids. You think about education, and again, that element of doing good, for the world. That sort of Buddhist-y bit is sort of somewhat, it's aligned to that basically. But I'm also involved with an EdTech fund called Emerge as one of the venture partners on an investment called Yotto, which is a kids clever speaker, which has Roald Dahl Foundation, reading stories and things like that. And
lovely.
That's really exciting. And the interesting learning is that, I thought I'd bring a lot of my food experience into the education world, which has been a natural sort of thing I have. But it's been really interesting that I've had some really interesting insights that have only come from the education side that I'm bringing back into the food side that I would not have been able to sort of conceive of, think of, and so on. And that's been really fun and interesting. And now also with healthy eating, you've got nutrition, personalized nutrition, all this is around education. So there's lots of natural things sort of bridging together. So there's a number of exciting things there that's
cool.
that I'm looking at. So
I'm excited to watch. Have you got like we should set up a code for pastor evangelists?
Yes, I'm sure there. I will.
We should put it in show notes. We'll put it in show notes. And people can get their first trial.
I'm sure Alex will be delighted with that.
Yeah, no, we should do for sure. So what's next then? What are you thinking? Because you're always on the move. You're always going forward. What else is going on?
So I'm really enjoying this. And I guess
you can tell. You're just like you're having so much fun.
I mean, it's so, I guess it's something what I always wanted to do. I guess the thing was, I thought I'd be in and out of Crussh in 5 years, and what's the zeros after my name? That's what I thought. It's been a lot more years and a lot fewer zeros. But what I'm doing now has always been, I guess, the intention was to sort of give back some of that experience, and because of the previous, I guess, consulting experience where you've got a broad mix of industries and skills, and then design and engineering, I now feel like I'm bringing sort of all of those bits together into adding value to helping the businesses go forward. But the part I'm really enjoying is also getting more into the NPD side.
Yeah.
So some of the businesses I work with, I'm doing the product development, helping them, and that's innovation, the fun part. So there's a couple of things I'm doing around, even on the cannabis side, which is quite interesting.
This is coming up quite often.
Yeah. So that's I'm quite excited about that aspect of things. And then there's another sort of interesting sort of business idea that one of the other guys in our industry have been chatting to around sort of like an Airbnb of food. So this some interesting other things as well that are burbling away. That who knows.
Nice.
So
it's exciting. And then we've touched on it a bit, but just this sort of blurred lines from in-home and out-of-home eating. I mean, what else can we do as an industry to just get people to eat out more, rather than have it in the house? It's a tricky one, right?
Well, okay, so, I mean, we're part of this 50-20 network,
Yes.
There's a bunch of it was set up by Robin and
like Anne
and James Haller and Chris
Peter.
Carls and and the idea was 50-20 is by 2050. Sorry, by 2020, 50% of the spend will be eaten out of home. That was the whole sort of reason for it. I mean, interestingly, right, the lines of what's considered eaten at home are blurred. So traditionally, my understanding is in-home eating is anything you buy from a supermarket, in the simplest way. Out of home is basically when you go to a restaurant. Now what happens when I'm sitting at home and I've got delivery coming in? Is that out of home or is it in home? Then you got the other side, which is the businesses like the Belle Assiette or something like that, where you bring in a chef into your home, cooking from your ingredients. Is that now an out of home dining experience in the home or the other way? So those things blur, and I think what I haven't seen happening well enough, and I may just be I haven't seen it, and it's happening, but that tracking of attribution of exactly when you actually to me, having Deliveroo come in, that's still considered technically out of home, because the money goes to it goes to the restaurant, right, as opposed to the supermarket. But you need to see what that transition is happening, because that defining experience, that's maybe it's an outdated way of thinking, in home, out of home, or you got to recut the definition, right? And that part, I think, marketeers, yourselves, really need to understand the nuance of that, because if you don't, you end up making decisions based on on incorrect data, if you like, and there's a sea change going underneath, because it's changed. Like, we have Netflix, you have all this sort of stuff, where actually before I didn't have the option of having a great meal at home, watching the latest movies that I'm happy with,
or original series that you can't see anywhere else,
right? So that eating out, dining, you think about the original, let's go on a date, dinner, movie, right? And then you add on that, as we get older and have families and kids, you're now stuck at home, literally. I can't go out in the same way I used to, right?
Oh, you can. You make your 40-50 quid for a babysitter down before you even get out the
exactly.
door,
And then you really I'm only going for a blowout meal. There's no point going to an average restaurant, right? It's got to be really good.
It's got to be great.
So that part, I think, is changing, and the mid-market suffers as a result of all that, I think. And then how do you understand that, and how do you play that out? So those nuances, I think people got to dig a little bit further.
Well, it's so interesting. I was at a speechy thing, conference. Might even be Peach. Anyway, I can't remember. But John Lewis were there, right? And I've not seen the new ad, by the way, yet.
I've read about it,
I have. The spoiler alert.
Exactly. That's a massive spoiler alert.
So I need to watch it. Good old Elt. But basically, the one of the heads of John Lewis was in anyway. And this was years ago, by the way, and they said, right, as you said, we looked at this completely differently, because we had, what's an online sale, what's a shop sale, and they just said, it's really simple. This store, Milton Keynes, let's say, where I used to live, up there, and then within a X mile radius,
Mm-hmm.
anything that's getting delivered and shop sales goes to that.
Yep.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then all across country just takes out all the thing and all the
Yeah.
so it means that you're putting, you know, equal effort into everything, because it is all wooden dollars at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you might as well just all, for the greater good,
Good. Absolutely.
just put your efforts into all of the channels.
But this goes back to leadership, understanding that in,
Yeah.
in the food industry
Yeah,
part
yeah.
of it as well, right? You know, you've actually got to conceive of
Yeah.
conceive of that, right? Yes, and as you said, you know, we have all the examples. We should be well on top of it, but we're not.
Well, you know, we've got the
We're getting there.
advantage of
Yeah.
what, 2, 3, 4 years of
Mm-hmm.
you know, a
Although-
lag.
Yes, exactly.
So we should make the most of it for
Yeah,
sure.
no, definitely.
So the last couple of things I was going to ask
Yeah.
you was, you know, a couple of tips, because you're
Oh.
the learned one, the wise one. Just about people starting out on a food business, so something like Crussh, or what would your sort of tips be? What would you say?
Well, I think know what you're getting into.
Is that possible?
well, put it this way, it's hard work, and I think you. So I do get a lot of, you know, sort of, you know, people that have been, you know, sort of introduced to me, you know, looking for advice and help, and happy to share where I can, if any little bit helps them, then absolutely. But one of the things that, you know, I would always say is that actually, if you're trying to do a food business, you know, the first thing you want to do is actually understand, is it a hobby type thing, or is it you want to grow,
Yeah.
you know, to make it a living sort of
Yeah.
thing. If it is something that you really want to do, understand it's hard bloody work, and actually you got to start and do it, because, you know, most of the people I'm meeting are ex-bankers, ex-consultants, you know, ex-lawyers wanting to kind of do what, you know, our generation
Food
has
looks
done.
cool.
Yeah, and think it's easy, and there's much easier ways to make money. It's not easy,
Yeah.
and it requires blood, sweat, and tears. And actually, what I say the difference now is that they have the benefit and the luxury of actually doing a startup, a pop-up.
Yeah.
Right, go to do street feast, go do, you know, whatever sort of market, you know, Sunday market, Saturday market, go down to Road Walk, you know, Maltby Street, whatever. Try to do that,
Yeah.
and then you get a sense of it. Because if you look at, you know, I mean, Meat Liquor, look at Pit Q, you know, all those guys, how did they, you know, even Pizza Pilgrims, you know, you started off, and then you're like, okay, proof of concept. I now have social media, Twitter followers, Facebook likes, or, you know, whatever, Instagram, you know, everything. Actually, I now have a pool of, I actually have an audience
Yeah.
that I can be much more confident in terms of going to bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
Our day, it's like, oh, let's raise some money, drop a few $100,000, pray, market. Will people come? Yeah, so you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But people want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But actually, you don't, and you shouldn't. You should, you know, take the leaf out of the tech world. Is actually just iterate and test.
Beta.
A/B test. Yeah.
And also, again, is, you know, is ego. So your ego, as the big banker and all that, would go, I want the bricks and mortar, and I want the best site I can,
Yeah.
and it's just come back a bit, try it out, have
Yeah.
a go, see. And also, your business might not be what you originally thought it was going to be.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it was a really good podcast this morning with Simon from Hawks Cider.
Okay.
And then his original business that he thought he was going to be doing was alcoholic ginger beer.
Right.
And it just, you know, changed along the way.
As they call it, pivoting.
Yeah, Friends episode. But I think, you know, from that perspective, that's the smart move.
Yeah.
Like, listen to the market, listen to the data. As
Yeah.
things are going on,
Yes.
you need to be agile.
Yeah.
And don't be so stubborn.
Yeah.
Be sure of your principles,
Yes.
as you said,
Yeah.
but don't be too stubborn to,
Yeah.
you know,
I think.
have a flex.
Yeah, you've got to go in it with a vision,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You've absolutely, and do something that you're passionate about, that you give a shit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you care, you know, you get excited about,
Yeah.
and then I think you've got to be open to input. I'd say, open-minded is that the right word? It's actually, you want to be open to input, because you want to listen, but you still have the prerogative of a founder or entrepreneur to make up your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Because only you know sort of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So you've got to be open to the input. But sometimes, people don't know what's in your head.
Yeah.
So you've got to make that decision. So
Yeah. And then the very last thing then was, on this new sort of age of your career, if people are listening and maybe it's more senior or experienced or whatever, and they're wanting to go into non-exec director roles, board advisory roles, investors. Any tips for that? What have you found getting into that?
Come chat to me. No, it's been a really interesting journey. Like again, I've walked into slightly not knowing very much about it, and I've chatted to friends, people who've done a hell of a lot more than I have, and so part of it's figuring it out myself. But one of the things I did was actually really sort of deliberately go down the route of understanding sort of the non-exec skill set, right? So governance and things like that. So part of it is doing joining the IOD and getting involved from a sort of CPD perspective, if you like, updating your own skills, because being exec and being quite direct and all, the skills are different, in terms of influencing and non-exec and so on. Now, the interesting thing is for entrepreneurial businesses, I actually think, to some extent, I'm fulfilling the role that I wish I had more of when I was running Crussh. And you actually, as an entrepreneur, you actually want to know and hear actually someone's experience, not facilitated sort of, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I did this, but you want to hear it and then say, okay, let me take that input, put it through my own machine and then come up with, whatever answer. But I want to hear that input, honestly, sort of transparently and that. So I think, understanding an element of that is important. For example, on University of Gloucestershire, it's very different. It's a large council. We've got 20 odd people on there. It's very, very organized, very, very structured, and Julian, who's the chair, does an amazing job of chairing so many people, eliciting the feedback, discussing it, and having it proper discussion, and still then drawing to a consensus and acting on it. That's a skill. It really is. And being part of that and sort of inputting in a way is been absolutely fantastic, and you bring in different perspectives into things. So I think being an entrepreneur, my personality is not going to change. It's going to be direct, but you just have to sort of be mindful of the difference between sort of governance versus management execution, if you like. So I think so learn, skill up, is it? Find something that you actually can add value on is the other part. It's all about sort of adding value and being able to pass on that sort of experience, and whether it is directly through contacts, through whatever. It's surprising how much you learn over the years. You don't realize.
I think it is, and well, that's the whole point of the podcast as well, is to get everyone to document this and and share it, which is a really good thing. But that's been amazing. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story and giving us your wise words. It's fantastic. So
thanks so much. You've been brilliant.
See you soon. Thanks.
You're the man.
Cheers. Thank you.